Hey there, Salem family. Thank you for joining us as we go through this journey in the book of Luke together. And my name is Stacie Jakes. If I don't know you, I'm the minister to preschoolers here at Salem. And today I would like us to look at Luke chapter 14 together. There are several stories and parables within this chapter. These stories cover Jesus' teaching on everything from working on the Sabbath to showing kindness to those less fortunate, and even what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. Let's look first in verse 1. We see that it says, "And it came about when he," speaking of Jesus, "went into the house of one of the leaders of the Pharisees on the Sabbath to eat bread, that they were watching him closely. And in front of him was a certain man suffering from dropsy." A quick side note here, we remember that Luke, who is of course writing the book of Luke, was a physician. He was a doctor by trade. So Luke is telling us about this man's medical condition, dropsy, which was a disorder that caused extreme fluid buildup, especially in the face. So this man was very disfigured and swollen. Jesus, knowing that the man was no doubt invited here as a trap, immediately confronted those who meant to trap him healing on the Sabbath. You see, in a house such as this, the Pharisees would only have invited the elite in their society, the leaders and the people of influence. They would have never invited a disfigured man in this physical state. So Jesus turned to them and asked, "Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not?" They said nothing. They had no words for Jesus, so Jesus took hold of the man and healed him and sent him on his way. Then Jesus said to them, "If any of you had a son or an ox that fell into a well on the Sabbath, would you not pull him out?" And again, the Pharisees were speechless. I love that the analogy that Jesus uses here is about a son or an ox drowning, because this disfigured man was quite literally drowning in his own fluids. Jesus could have avoided confrontation and told the man to come back tomorrow after sundown and then I'll heal you, but he cured the man and confronted his critics. I don't know that I could say that I would voluntarily enter such a lion's den like Jesus did here. He chose to go to a house and accept the hospitality of folks that were not his disciples or friends and were determined to prove that he was not who he said he was, that he was no son of God. He corrected the Pharisees and exposed their hypocrisy and their pride, but all in the most wise, calm, and dignified manner. As Colossians 4:6 tells us, the speech is always with grace and seasoned with salt. What a challenge to speak truth boldly, but also with love. Jesus taught us here not to get so wrapped up and imprisoned by legalism that we forget that we are governed with grace. The Sabbath was meant to give rest, but it had turned into more of a burden. As followers of Jesus, the world watches us closely too, don't they? Just as the Pharisees, with eyes that were spiritually closed, longed to trap Jesus and his followers, the world watches us to see how we are different. How will we react in bad times as well as good? We can, of course, never reach the status of perfection that Jesus did, but we can be mindful of watchful eyes on us, especially in a world that is often very difficult to tell the difference between those that call themselves Christ followers and not. Jesus then moves on to teach about serving others in verses 7 through 14, and then tells the parable of the Great Supper beginning in verse 15. And I love this story. In the parable, a man planned a large banquet and sent out invitations. When the banquet was ready, he sent his servants out to contact the invited guests and tell them that everything was ready and to come on. One after another, the guests made excuses for not coming. The excuses were laughable. They were so bad. One man said that he had bought land that he had to go and see. Another man said that he had purchased oxen and had to go and try them out. And yet another gave the excuse that he had just gotten married and recently and therefore could not attend. When the master of the house heard these flimsy excuses, he was very angry. He told his servant to forget the guest list and go back and go into the streets and pull the people that were less fortunate, go into the towns and the alleyways and the streets and invited the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame. The servant brought back the down and out townspeople, and then there was still room at the table. So then the master sent his servant on an even broader search to the country. And he sent them to the roads and lanes again there. And he said, make them come in so that my house is full. He said that not one of those men who was originally invited will taste of my banquet. Here, the master represents God and the great banquet, his kingdom. The original invited guests picture Jesus' own people that rejected him as the Messiah when he was born in Bethlehem. John 1:11 tells us that he came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. The detail that the invitation was open to the people that society looked down on as unclean or unworthy is important here. The great banquet is open to all of us. We don't have to do anything to make ourselves worthy of his grace and his love. I am most thankful for that. I hope that as we celebrate the Savior of the world this Christmas season, that if there is anyone that hasn't accepted the invitation to his great banquet, that you would do so and accept the free gift of salvation. Don't give flimsy excuses and wait until an easier day or until you're less busy or until life settles down to get serious about your relationship with the Lord. I think that that's the main challenge here in this parable. I hope that you all have a great and Merry Christmas season with your families, and thank you again for joining us today on this journey through Luke, and Merry Christmas.